Pokemon Legends Arceus is one of the more unique Pokemon games in the past little while, and I think it's definitely a good refresh considering, all the past previous games have been pretty much just very similar, and it's nice that this one kind of takes on a different style of gameplay. And while we have gone to some other Pokemon games with a somewhat new style of gameplay, those were mostly just free-to-play games and are remakes like the Mystery Dungeon remake that came out a while ago. And while most of them are fine in their own rights, a lot of them weren't just big console games, since a lot of them, again, were just free-to-play mobile games. And when the initial trailer came out for Legends Arceus, I can say for myself, my hopes were pretty high since it did look pretty cool. While it wasn't a great showcase of it, since the game did look really rough, it slowly got better from the other trailers. But I wanna now talk about, did it live up to my expectations, and let's go over that, starting with my likes. But I'm sorry to interrupt, but before we actually start the video, I just want to say, if you guys like my videos, leave a like, sub, and follow my Twitter, which is linked down below. Now it's time to get into the actual video. Starting with my first like is the gameplay. I think the catching here is fun, and what you can do to distract the Pokemon is pretty funny sometimes, and you can of course sneak around them. And if you're like me, you can also just go directly into battle with almost every single Pokemon if you try to do it the old-fashioned way. Either way you try to do it, I think it's nice. In a turn-based battle here, I think it's also alright, and it takes notes from other games like Final Fantasy X, which is a nice change to see. There's also the strong and agile style, which can kind of help you change the tide of battle, either by getting you KOs faster or by letting you attack a lot more often. For me, it didn't change the battles all that much, since I didn't really notice a massive change in the turn order, but at least you can get extra damage to help you win battles just a little bit faster. I also like the side quests for the most part, since they can be kind of funny. While a lot of them just boil down to catching certain Pokemon, some of them have a funny story, like where a lady thinks a Chimchar's tail is a ghost, or it could just play off the game systems in a fun way. Like one early quest that I've seen a lot of people online complain about, me included, is catching a Weasel that's bigger than 2'9". Stuff like this, I think it's kind of cool, since you have to pay attention to a lot more other than just catching the Pokemon. And also, I think meeting the characters here is pretty nice, both the new characters and ones that are most likely related to characters in the main game. For ones based off of the characters, I ended up liking Rocky, Ian, and Indigo. And for the new characters, Amaranth, Paulina, and Professor Laventon were really fun to see for me, and I thought they all had pretty nice designs. I think the only downside is that a lot of them really didn't get much development, like a Rocky, but other than that, they're still pretty nice to interact with. And on the designs, I found most of the new Pokemon and forms to be pretty cool overall. New forms like Hisuian Growlithe, Slagoo, and its evolution, along with Braviary and the Stars, I found to be my favorites. And while I think they might not fully match the ancient times the game is set in, they still look really cool, and stuff like Growlithe and Arcanine, I'm really glad got new forms, since I feel like after Gen 7, them getting new forms were bound to happen at some point. And even Salmon got a new evolution, which is pretty cool since it basically got nothing since its introduction in Generation 2. And again, I think this entry is a good refresh, especially after the spin-offs just being okay and the main games being kind of lackluster for the most part in the last few years. There's a lot in this game that I wish got into future titles, like having a ton of side quests. Maybe those could be a little bit better, yes, but again, I just want more side quests in the game. The more free from nature when it comes to doing the story, along with the choice of how you want to approach catching Pokemon. But even with all these positives, there's still some stuff I wish the game did better, like for example, the pacing of the story. It's very similar to games like Sword and Shield and X and Y, where a lot of the big events kind of just happen at the end, which sucks since I thought Legends Arceus could have used the story to explore Sinnoh's lore. You end up just saving the noble Pokemon with some lore here and there, and not much else until you have to deal with Dialga and Palkia. I wish these two could have been causing more problems throughout the main story, since the final act just doesn't really feel all that natural, and it kind of just comes out of nowhere. And another part I ended up not really liking as much was the lack of side stuff to do, since all you can really do in the game is just catch Pokemon and fight other trainers. While some other games might not have as much, it at least is slightly better than this, because at least those ones have like the Battle Tower, like restricted fights from Sword and Shield, contests from Gen 3 and 4, and a few other mini games here and there. At least with all of the other games, they try to at least make sure there was either a unique challenge or just some other fun side thing you can do. And while catching Pokemon in Legends Arceus is fun, it being the main thing kinda can just get boring after a while, especially since you do that the whole game. And there's definitely not a whole lot trainer battles in the main game. Like, I know there was a bit more in the post game, and especially after they added that free battle DLC. But again, it's just battling and catching. It just kind of sucks there was even less to do in these games, and they're all in stuff like Sword and Shield, which kind of just, again, stinks. And another thing I didn't really like was how muddy and washed out the game looks in terms of like the textures and whatnot. And I thought Sword and Shield were really underwhelming for the most part, but at least in those games, there's at least some good parts to look at, and all the stuff I saw in Legends Arceus, there isn't a whole lot of good stuff to look at. And while the areas might be fun to explore, it just looks really off. I think the Pokemon models look fine for the most part, it's just, I can't say the same thing for the human characters and just the areas in general. And for me, the game was pretty easy for the few trainer battles it did have. And I don't mind easy games, it's just that when I was leveled by 10 or so, I didn't really feel nervous at all, and how I play the main games doesn't really change here. I think the trainers, at least for the main story, share the same problem as the main series, where they have small parties even in the late game, and even the last trainer only had like a party of 4. And along with that, they don't really have full moves for the most part, and I've said before that it kind of just limits the strategies the AI can do, and it's kind of annoying. And while I thought the post game is a bit harder, I think if a game only has a few hard fights after the main story, it doesn't really make it much better, since, you know, it just feels like they saved everything to the end. And while this is mostly just for battling, the normal fights I found kind of hard, especially since, you know, the arenas were kind of small and dodging their attacks were kind of hard. It's just that, like, when you got into like the normal Pokemon battle, that was insanely easy for me. And like previous battles, I think this game has a whole lot of good ideas that I wish they kept on expanding on in future titles. And as I mentioned before, there's just the freedom of how you want to catch Pokemon and various other ideas. And from what was shown in the Scarlet and Violet trailer earlier this year, the open world stuff still remained, which is a good thing since I did like it for the most part in Legends Arceus. So here's hoping for the future for Gen 9 when it comes out in November. But now I want to hear what you guys ended up liking and disliking, so let me know in the comments below. And as usual, before the video ends, I'll go over my likes and dislikes. Likes, fun gameplay, alright side quests, nice characters, and good designs for the characters and Pokemon. Dislikes, really bad pacing, not a lot of side stuff to do, the game looks muddy and washed out, and the game is pretty easy. Thank you all for watching, and see you guys later.